What's up, everybody? In today's video, I'm giving you the official roamer tier list for Y8S Season 1, Operation Commanding Force. So the first thing I want to say is that this is not a normal tier list. This is an S tier, this is an F tier. People in this category are not worse operators than people in this category. I'll give you an example. Azami, you do not want to roam as Azami ever. A really good meta roamer right now is Oryx. Oryx is great at roaming and you want to roam as him. That's why he's in the meta roamer category. Does this mean that Oryx is better than Azami? Fuck no, not by any stretch. This is not a normal tier list though. Keep that in mind. This is a roamer tier list. So it's gonna look a bit different than any other tier list that you've seen. With that out of the way, let's really get started. First of all, Alibi, definitely a meta roamer for me. The only thing that kind of sucks is she doesn't have the 1.5 times scope anymore, but she's still amazing at roaming. One thing that is defining of this meta is, of course, roaming. So roaming is extremely powerful right now. That's why Oryx is so high. He had the highest win rate in the entire game leading to this meta, right? So did Alibi. She was pretty much up there, but without the 1.5 times scope, she did get lowered a little bit. Easy to control SMG, very good with speed because she's a 3-speed, so still pretty meta. If you want to put her in good though, I completely understand. For now, I'm going to leave her in meta. Aruni, do not roam. She is an anchor. She's a 3 armor. Her weapons are a little bit limiting as well, so I definitely recommend you stay on site as Aruni. Again, does this mean that Aruni or Azami are worse than Alibi or Oryx? No, they're just worse at roaming, right? That's what this tier list is, just to remind you. Bandit, I will say, is a bit of a controversial pick. You can roam as Bandit, but you don't want to roam as Bandit. When you do roam as Bandit, though, he is okay. He's a 3-speed with a good SMG, but that's about it. He brings no other utility that you need on the roam. His utility actually is meant to be on site, and if you are picking Bandit, you need to be Bandit tricking as Bandit, because if you're just putting down his Bandit charges and you're leaving, you could be playing somebody like Cade or Mute and have more wall denial or better hidden wall denial in Cade's case, right? So if you're picking Bandit for wall denial and you're not bandit tricking, it's a complete waste of an operator. That being said, if you are bandit tricking, that means you're staying on site, which means you need to be an anchorer. That is why he isn't in a good roamer or meta roamer, because he's not meta to roam with. You need a 1.5 times scope. And even if you do roam with him, he doesn't have the utility to help him on the roam like other people you'll see in the good roamer category. And if you want a frame of reference, I'll go over a good roamer right now, which is Ella. Ella is a good roamer. She's not meta because she doesn't have a 1.5 times scope. She doesn't have easy to control recoil guns like these two, but she's still good at roaming, right? Her utility can be used on the roam. If you are good with her weapons, she is very good on the roam, and you can easily zoom in and out because of how fast she is, right? She's not a 3 armor, so pretty good. Bandit does not have that utility though, right? That's why I put him in okay, because he's an okay roamer. Castle, I'm also going to put in the okay roamer tier. Now, the higher up you go in ranks, and if you're even playing comp, right, I would actually put him in good roamer. Not meta, but I'd put him in good, because as Castle, you never sit on site. You're always roaming and extending the site into a roam or lightly roaming, which would make me put him in good if you're high elo. But again, this is a solo queue ranked tier list. If you're solo queuing, that already bumps him 1 down. And because most of the people playing ranked are silver and gold, they don't know how to play Castle properly, which bumps him down another tier. So, you know, if you're any of the above, either a good player or you're in a good rank, I would bump him up. But for now, I'm going to put him in the bad roamer category. And then we have Cav. Cav is a good roamer. She is a terrible operator, right? Like I said, this isn't a normal tier list. If this was a normal tier list, she'd be obviously in the F tier. But she's not a terrible roamer. Is she a terrible operator? Absolutely. One of the worst. But she's good at roaming because you can flank people. It's very hard to track you down if you're not specifically droning. She's good for interrogations to get multi-kills on the roam. She has a silencer, and her shotgun is very well paired with that silenced pistol. So she's good. Is she meta? By no stretch, because she's a terrible operator, like I said, but she's okay. Clash, I'm going to put in the bad roamer section. The reason it's not in the do not roam section is because as Clash, you're not actually supposed to sit in sight. You're supposed to sit near sight, and you're supposed to deny them from being able to push a very specific room that leads to the site. Typically, you play Clash in front of the wall that needs to get opened. Great example, the bakery wall that needs to get opened in order to plant in kitchen. Clash playing inside of bakery is very powerful so that they can't get that wall. Another great example, having Clash play inside of VIP so they can't get the white wall open on Cafe, right? Great examples of playing Clash to roam as her, right? Not necessarily deep roam, but you can roam a little bit, which is why I'm putting her in bad and not necessarily do not roam. Doc, do not roam. I mean, he's just meant to sit on site and heal and hold long angles with his 1.5 times scope. Echo, I'm going to put in bad roamer. Again, there are certain subsets where you can roam with him if you're playing off of his echo cams, or if you're going for flashy plays with his shotgun when you're flanking. I don't know, echo players are weird. There are certain very little scenarios where you can roam with him, and that's why I'm going to put him in the bad roamer and not the do not roam. If you want to put him in do not roam, you can, honestly. I would recommend it, but I'll put him in bad roamer just because there's kind of little strats that you can do to roam with him. Frost, I want to say, is in between good and meta roamer. Just because she's a meta operator does not mean that she's a meta roamer. Does that make sense? Because you don't really necessarily have to roam with Frost, and if you do, it's definitely not going to be as good or as efficient of a roam as it would be with somebody that's a 3-speed, right? So I'll put her in the good roamer category for now. Is she a meta operator, especially for solo queue ranked? Absolutely. She's at the top of meta. If you watch my defender tier list, which I'll put in the top right here, you understand why. But I'll put her in the good roamer for now because she is a 2-speed. She has a deployable shield. Her gun is very low rate of fire, and her utility isn't really set to be on a roam unless you're doing an extension that you're holding a single rune for. So I'll put her in good for now. If you want to put her in meta, sure, you probably shouldn't though. Goyle will put in okay. He does have a 1.5, and all of his utility you do place down on the prep phase, giving you the freedom to do whatever you want afterward, but he's a 2-speed and he doesn't have much utility to help him on the roam other than that. So I'm just gonna put him in okay for now. This might be a bit controversial, but I'm also going to put Jaeger in okay. The reason that Jaeger is okay and not good is because they've nerfed his gun so many times to the point where its low rate of fire is better suited to holding angles, because you have the low rate of fire, but you have damage, meaning if you hit 1 bullet or 2 bullets, you'll get a lot more damage than somebody with an SMG with low damage, right? So that being said, people that hold angles are typically anchors, and you want to be playing off of your ADSs anyways, so he's better suited to anchoring. If you want to roam with him, you can. I just don't recommend it, especially when people like Alibi, Oryx, and Frost, and Ella are on the table. Cade, do not roam. There's just no reason to. He has no utility to help himself out. Capcan, same exact thing. You don't need to roamism. Let your traps do the roaming for you. Lesion, I'm going to put in meta roamer. Lesion is very good for this meta because it's very rush heavy, it's very fast paced, and Lesion slows this down. Not only this, but he's very easy to play, easy to learn, and easy to get value off of because his gadget is just very simple. He also has one of the easiest to control SMGs on defense, so I definitely recommend you pick him up because he counters the meta of just rushing. Maestro, do not roam. Echo, you can play off of his cams on the roam. Maestro, you can't because they're standing still, so I just recommend proning in sight with his LMG and sitting and playing off of your cameras that way. Melusi, 3 armor, I wouldn't roam. Most of your utility is on site anyways. Mira, same exact thing. Mozzie, however, I think is a meta roamer. He has a 1.5. He's very fast. He has good guns for the roam. He has utility that can help him on the roam by denying drones and wasting even more time, so I definitely recommend you play Mozzie if you haven't already. Mute, his counterpart, is a do not roam. Now, there could be a case to say that you can put mute jammers for your roamers to help them not get droned, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily should be roaming. If he was a 2-speed, I'd probably put him in the okay roamer spot because you can roam with him, but he's a 3 armor now, so I definitely don't recommend you roam with him at all. Pulse is a bad roamer. There are strats where you can roam with him by going below the site, but typically as Pulse, you want to be playing inside the site and going for vertical play above the site. So not really much you can do to roam with him. Like I said, there are certain strats where you can go below the site, but the only map that I can think you could do that on would be Consulate, and that's pretty much his best map. So other than that, I don't recommend you roam with Pulse at all. Rook, don't roam, pretty obvious why. Smoke is a bad roamer because again, there are certain substrats that you can do to roam with Smoke. You can lightly, meaning you're still close to the objective, you can lightly roam with Smoke on certain objectives and only certain objectives. Great example being basement and bank. You can play blue stairs or you can play CC. It's not on site, but it's near site to delay the inevitable push, or you can play elbow near site in Oregon and basement, right? So there's some times where you can lightly roam a Smoke, but I don't recommend roaming that heavily, especially considered you have these operators that you can play instead. Solus is a meta roamer because she gets rid of all information and you can roam very efficiently with her. I think honestly I'll put her in good roamer. She's a meta operator, but that doesn't mean she's a meta roamer. Her ability is best suited, like Smoke on those certain substrats, to lightly roam and to lurk more than deep roaming like Oryx, Mozzie, Alibi, or Lesion. On shorter maps, Solus's abilities are a lot less useful because on shorter maps people know what gadgets are being thrown where, and you can kind of just know where they're going to push. So Solus is a lot less useful in small maps, which is why she is only a good roamer and not meta. Tatanka, do not roam, pretty self-explanatory there. Thorn, I want to say, is either a good roamer or an okay roamer. I'll put her in good. I just think she's an okay operator overall, a tad bit overrated, but at roaming she does have a pretty good weapon, and you can use her abilities as kind of like makeshift proximity alarms that you can swing off of for the roam. So she is actually kind of okay for roaming, but I'll put put her in the bottom of good roamer, maybe above Cav, just because, you know, she's kind of okay. Thunderbird, we can put in probably either okay or good. You can roam as Thunderbird, but she's not a great operator in general. Well, neither is Cav, so yeah, I'll put her in good. Thunderbird, not a good operator. Unless you're on console, then she's a pretty good operator, but on PC, she's pretty dog shit. She has no utility, no 1.5 times scope to help her on the roam. All your utility you put in sight. Maybe the Nitro Cell, but I mean, that didn't help Bandit, so it's not going to help her. She does have the Spear though, which is really the only thing that's carrying her to the high echelon of play for roaming. So I'll put her in good for now, but I definitely don't recommend that you pick her over roamers like these 7 over here. Valkyrie, she's okay. She's not actually meant to roam. She's meant to play off of her cameras below, kind of like Pulse is meant to play below. You're meant to have C4 traps with her and get intel on where they're pushing, kind of like you would with Solus. People aren't playing Valkyrie as much because Solus is kind of just about her alternative to what she does, except without a C4. So she's kind of okay. I'm gonna put Vigil in good. He is outshined by literally everyone else in good because he does what all of these people do, but worse, except for like Cav and Thorn, and I guess Thunderbird for that matter. Like, if you want to not be seen by cameras and you want to roam, do it with Mozzie, because Mozzie has a 1.5 times scope, arguably better weapons, and can turn enemy drones into your drones, right? So a lot more useful in my opinion. Wamai is a bad roamer. There are certain scenarios like smoke where you can lightly roam to hold pressure and hold space, but that's pretty much it. Warden, same thing. You can hold rooms with his C4, with his 1.5 times scope. You can make it to where they don't flash rush rooms to get the wall open easier. Where you would hold as Wamai for those light roams is the same place that you would hold as Warden. Pretty much the exact same thing. But with that out of the way, that's actually pretty much it for the roamer tier list. Like I said, these operators on the bottom are not worse than the ones above them. They're just worse at roaming. I want to keep repeating that because I know people in my comment section are going to be dumb enough to comment, no way he put Mira in F tier but Oryx in S tier. I know it's coming. Anyways, like the video if you like, sub to the channel down below. My name is Alka and I will see y'all in the next video. Later.